In this session, I'm going to talk about how to install Windows 11 Guest OS on VMware vSphere 8. That means any of the ESXi 8 or vCenter 8 environment with a virtual TPM, Trusted Platform Module. Okay, so in this our demo environment, I'm using vSphere 8 and with Nimble shared storage, and I'm using the operating system Microsoft Windows 11 Guest OS. Okay, so here are the key items before we start. So when we are installing Windows 11 in a virtual machine vSphere 8, it's almost identical to installing previous version of Windows like Windows 10, Windows 8, 7, and so on. These versions are how we install same way in Windows 11, but only difference is the change is that Windows 11 requires a virtual TPM device. So TPM means trusted platform module device. In general, we have a hardware TPM. It's a one chip within our motherboard, server motherboard, but we are using a virtual TPM for virtual machine guest OS. Okay, so that means it's a software generated TPM device is the pre-requirement to install Windows 11. But why Microsoft introduced this concept is to enhance the security in Windows 11 guest operating system, because normal these days we are receiving some ransomware and some malware attacks frequently. So this scenario, there is a chances of vulnerability attacks within our guest operating system. So to address this situation, to enhance the security, Microsoft and also the VMware, they given a features to enable TPM. That is a pre-requirement to install the operating system. So it will help us to reduce the risk in our guest operating system level. And when creating new virtual machine, we require minimally vSphere client and select the virtual machine compatibility should be ESXi 8.0 and later editions. And virtual machine hardware version should be 20 and choose the Microsoft Windows 11 64-bit flavor as the guest version. Okay, this is the requirement. And normally when we're trying to install, the common error message what we see is Microsoft Windows 11 the TPM device which cannot be added to this virtual machine because virtual environment it says that vSphere environment is not configured with a key provider. So this error message if you want to verify, let me quickly connect to our lab system. Suppose within our vSphere 8 environment, we have 3 ESXi hosts and running with 2 virtual machine because it's a lab server and ESXi version is 8.0. Suppose if I want to create a new virtual machine, you can select either data center, host level or cluster level, right click, select new virtual machine and choose the option create new virtual machine, click on next and enter the virtual machine name. Let's say VM name is Windows 11 with virtual TPM device. So when I select the virtual machine name and choose the respective data center, click on next and compute resource, either we can choose the cluster or we can choose the ESXi host. Suppose I selected as ESX3, click on next and data store, I'm choosing the data store as Windows Nimble data store I'm choosing instead of local data store and compatible with ESXi 8 and later editions. So click on next and guest OS family Windows and guest OS version we have to choose Windows 7, sorry Windows 11. When I select Windows 11 we have this error message. Suppose if I select Windows 10 there will be no error message. So recommendation is we should choose Windows 11 and we have to resolve this error message. But what is this information warning message is Microsoft Windows 11 requires a virtual TPM device. So this point only I highlighted in the title. It requires virtual TPM trusted platform module device, which cannot be added to this virtual machine because the vSphere environment is not configured with key provider. So we should know about key provider concept. So key provider means key management server or we can also call it as key provider. We have generally two types of key providers. One is vSphere native key provider and another one is third party KMS servers. One example is Gemalto. Gemalto HSM is the one of the KMS server. Suppose if you work on any of the other KMS servers, you can let me know those KMS servers in our comment section below. Okay. So to address this situation, let me go back to our slide. There are few resolution steps. So based on this error only, we are giving the resolution steps. So the first point is adding a key provider, because it's in our error, it clearly says it require key provider. So our first step, we can start with adding a key provider and then create a virtual machine with encrypted hard disk. So encryption also required, and add a vTPM device. That means virtual TPM hardware device. Once we done these three steps, it will allow you to install the Windows 11 successfully in our virtual machine guest OS level. Okay, so final option is eventually start the VM and Windows 11 guest OS install without a compatibility error message. So I will explain you these three steps one by one, how we are going to add the key provider. So the main key questions to address this error is we should know how to enable the vSphere native key provider or standard or third-party key provider like a Gemalto HSM, and how to create a new virtual machine. We already know, but I will show you how we can map the encrypted hard disk, and I will also show you how we can enable vTPM. Once we done these three steps, we can successfully install the Windows 11. So we'll start with the first point. Let's log into lab system. Let me cancel. Even if you have this error message, when I click on next also, it won't proceed. So we can just simply cancel, and we are going to enable the key provider first. So to enable the key provider, log into vCenter server, select the vCenter. Okay, on the top hierarchy in the right pane, you can go to the configure tab. Under configure tab, we have security settings. So we have settings and also the security. Just expand the security, we can look for a key provider option. So when I select the key providers in the right pane, we can see the add option. So just click on add option. We have a two types of key providers. We can add a native key provider. A native key provider means this is specifically for a vSphere native key provider. And another one is add a standard key provider. That means it's any of the third party key provider. One example is Gemalto HSM. For example, if I select a native key provider, we have to choose the name and use the key provider only with the TPM protected ESXi host. That means within our ESXi host, we must have a hardware TPM device. If you do not have hardware device, just uncheck this option. Okay, and we have to enter the key provider name, any of the one name. Let's say native key provider, and this is a vSphere native key provider. So in our shortcut, I'm just using vSphere native and vSphere shortcut VS and negative, so N, and key provider KP hyphen 01. Just for our easy understanding, when we see this name, okay, it's a vSphere native key provider 01. So click on add key provider. So key provider is added. But when we add the key provider, type is showing as native and status is not backed up. But VMware recommendation, when we create a key provider, native key provider, we have to take the backup and keep it for a future use. Okay, so let's, if you want to take the backup, select this one, and you see, when you see here, we can see add a native key provider and backup the provider. So you can click here, or else in the top we can see the backup option. Any option we can use. So let's say click on backup. Once we click on backup, protect the native key provider data with the password. If you want to assign the password, you can select and use the password, or you can just uncheck, and without password also we can take the backup. But for a recommendation, we should take the password. Let me assign the password, and the same way verify password. Once we confirm, I have saved the password in secure place, select and backup the key provider. So we have to take the backup. Let's say for time being, I'm just taking the backup to C drive VMware downloads, and later we can copy it into the somewhere external location. So click on save. See, now we added the native key provider and backup also completed. Now this the status is active state. We can see status active. And suppose in future, if your customer is looking for a external or third party key provider, again use the same option, select the vCenter, go to configure, under security section, select key provider and go to the add. instead of native key provider, we have to choose add standard key provider. So standard key provider means we can use any of the specific vendor names, example Gemalto. So when you use Gemalto one, you can use shortcut to Gemalto key provider and a specific Gemalto physical KMS server name, IP address and port number. Okay, and the remaining proxy configuration password protections are optional. If you have multiple KMS physical servers, you can add all those KMS servers here. Okay, so but currently in our lab we do not have the physical KMS server, so I'm just canceling this option. So I'm using a native key provider, but the same procedure to use the third party key provider option also. So the first step is completed, and the second step is how to create a VM with encrypted hard disk. So if you want to create with a encrypted hard disk, log into our system. Now we have a key provider is ready. So select the virtual machine, cluster, select new virtual machine and create new virtual machine and choose the VM name. Let's say Windows 11 with Virtual TPM. Just for our easy understanding, I'm using this name. You can keep any of the name. Okay. Now click on next and choose the cluster and specific ESXi host. Click on next, and data storage HP and nimble storage. Data store I selected because we have more free space. Click on next, and compatible with ESXi 8 and guest OS family Windows and guest OS version we have to choose Windows 11. So when I select Windows 11, this time there is no error message. Okay, and another important point is we notice that compatibility should be with ESXi 8.0 and later. This point only I highlighted in our slide, and VM hardware version should be 20. Okay, and also VMware recommend that we should enable Windows virtualization based security. This option must be enabled, but in our previous Windows versions we do not have this option. Suppose if I select Windows 10, we can have let me see that older than Windows 10 there is no option. Maybe it started from Windows 10 edition onwards, but 11 it's recommended to enable this option. Okay, to secure our guest OS level to enhance our guest OS level security. So click on next and customize hardware. Here also there are few important options. Sometimes you can see the CPU, memory and the hard disk size default it's selected as 96. You can keep 96, or if you want to modify, you can modify. Let's say given as 100 GB and the hard disk type, I'm changing to thin provision. And even if you want to change the policy, encryption policies, we can modify here, or once VM is created also we can modify. And if you see here in the below, TPM device, it's added automatically. Security feature, TPM added. Trusted platform module added automatically. Some cases, if it is not added automatically, we have an option here, add new device and add the trusted platform device. This is recommended to install Windows 11. Okay, so here we already have TPM device and also encryption policy. Even once VM is created also, I will show you that option. Click on next, and you can, if you notice here, VM name hard ESX compatible Windows 11 OK, and the main key point is trusted platform device TPM device also adding, because trusted platform module is present. So click on finish. Once the VM creation is completed, we will start installing the guest OS. So right click the VM, go to the edit settings. We need to enable the encrypt. We need to encrypt our hard disk. So how we can do is we can go to the VM options. Within the VM options, you can just look for a encryption option. See under VM options tab, expand the encryption. We can see the data store default is the encryption VM. If you want to modify, you can modify to VM encryption policy. So when you select VM encryption policy, click on OK. So encryption also enabled. Okay, let's back to our slide. Quickly, I'm just going back to previous slide. We have key provider is added, VM is created with encrypted hard disk, encryption also done, and we even adding TPM device, it's already added when automatically. Even I will show you how we can add vTPM device. Just go back to console. If you want to add this VM to either power on VM or power off VM. TPM, if you want to add, recommendation is virtual machine should be power off. If it is power on, make it power off first. Once it is power off, right click the VM, go to the edit settings, and there is an option to add new device. So when you click on add new device, we can look for a trusted platform module. But currently our VM already running with the TPM, and also recommended that, remember that another key point is for each virtual machine, we can add only one device only. We cannot add multiple devices. Suppose if I trying to add also, we will get your message. See, the maximum number of devices of this type has been reached. That means one virtual machine can add only one TPM device. So let's cancel this one. We already added, click on OK. Now, if you want to install the guest OS, right click the VM, go to the edit settings and map the specific data store ISO file. So we have to choose CD DVD, sorry. So data store ISO and from the Nimble storage, I uploaded the ISO already just to with interest of our time, and select the Windows 11 and connect it power on option, connected state, click on OK. So now guest OS is also connected. We are good to power on. Once we can power on, it will start booting from the ISO file. See, press any key. If it is not pressed, again restart one more time. Now we can see the message, press any key to boot the CD. So now it start booting from the ISO. So from here onwards, we know how to install the Windows 11, but we'll see whether the installation is going smoothly or not. See, guest OS English language install now. And if you have activation key, we have to choose the activation key. If you do not have, just select I do not have product key, and we can enter the key later also. So choose your relevant Windows flavors. For example, Windows 11 Pro, click on next, and license agreement accept, click on next, and choose the install, and the partition is 100 GB. I'm planning to install C drive within the 100 GB. So click on next, and it will start installing. So this time there is no error message. Everything is going smooth with virtual trusted platform module device. Okay, so until now we talk about these 3 points: how we can add key provider, how we can encrypt the hard disk, and adding the vTPM. With these three options only, we can successfully installing the Windows 11 with our ESXi 8 virtual machine guest OS. Okay, and let's quickly recap these 3 points. So if you see the first point, how to enable vSphere native key provider or standard key provider. I log into the vCenter and I shown you the configure security key provider. This option we validated, and we added a native key provider, and we mentioned the name as VSNKP01. Okay, and enter the provider name we already entered, and we use the key. We unchecked this option key provider, but if you want to check this option, we must and should have hardware TPM device within our ESXi host level. Then only we can check this option. And because it allows to using vTPM for host without a physical TPM chip. Okay, and then backup the key provider. We already took the backup, and backup and download the file .p12 file. This file is already saved in our lab system. Okay, so this step completed. Final one also completed. Okay, now we'll talk about the second resolution step: how to create new virtual machine with encrypted hard disk. Virtual machine creation we already know, and we have the compatible vSphere environment and virtual hardware version, and secure boot by default it will selected, and we choose the VM encryption from the VM options tab. And Windows virtualization based security option also we enable during VM creation itself. And while creating the VM, make sure that above options are enabled, and we can encrypt the disk via VM encryption policy. Encryption policy we found from the VM options tab. So all these options also we validated. And encryption policy, I'll show you quickly one more time. This is under the VM, right click, edit settings, go to the VM options tab. Under encryption only, we've changed it to VM encryption policy. Okay. So second point also completed. And third point, how to enable virtual TPM for a VM ESX VM. This one also we power off the VM edit setting, add device, TPM, click on OK. Once power on, validate TPM device from edit settings. We can encrypt the disk via VM encryption policy also. So that means our guest OS hard disk is completely secured. Even if we share our virtual machine hard disk to any external party, they cannot access our data because it's completely encrypted. If you want to decrypt whatever the backup we took the key provider file, that file is required to decrypt our hard disk. And while decrypting also, they need a password. So that means our guest OS Windows 11 is completely secured. Even there will be a no chances of any ransomware, malware attacks. The attack surface is completely reduced. That is the importance of virtual trusted platform module vTPM. Okay, hope you got all these 3 points. So these options are verified. That's it for today. Thank you. Please do view, like, share, and subscribe to the Gnan Cloud Garage channel if you are watching first time. If you're already subscribed, I appreciate all your support. Bye for now.